What's going on, comic fam? It's your boy, the Bearded Comic Bro, and we are back for another episode of our journey through the Amalgam Universe. And so last week we did our intro into the Amalgam Universe, and we started with DC versus Marvel books, and kind of gave an intro of what that was. And issue number 1, we kind of talked about everything that we should talk about for issue 1 last episode. So we're going to focus in on issue 2 today. So, with that being said, let's talk Amalgam Comics. Gang, we are back and we are looking at Marvel vs. DC, issue number 2. Issue number 1 was DC vs. Marvel. Issue number 2, Marvel vs. DC, because it's so important whose name is listed first, right? But this is where we get into the meat of the series here. Issue 1 we talked about last week kind of just draws you in. People, different characters start going into the different universes and you start to realize they exist. But issue 2 is where we find out about the brothers that we talked about a little bit last week, where DC and Marvel are separate universes and they are represented by this kind of godlike beings called the brothers, and they have been awoken, and DC and Marvel universes realize that they exist, and the brothers don't like each other, so the brothers are going to say, hey, we want to see who is better, DC or Marvel. And geekdom rejoiced. And in this issue, we get our first 3 battles. So let's talk about these fights. You need to keep in mind, though, as we look at these fights, and these are quick panels, real short, like maybe most fights are 1 or 2, if you're lucky, 3 pages. And they do that because they just have such a short time to tell these stories and tell these fights, because there's 4 issues in the DC Marvel vs. DC books. Issue 1, there were no fights. Issue 4, there were no fights, because issue 4 deals with the aftermath of the characters merging into the Amalgam series, and issue 1 was set up. So issue 2, we have 3 fights. So we know next episode is going to be jam-packed as we're talking about all these different fights. But they're quick. Remember, it's not who would ultimately win. It's kind of like you got one shot, one round. Who's going to win the first round at least? And up first, our first battle that we're going to look at is Captain Marvel, aka Shazam, versus the God of Thunder, Thor. And hopefully, as you are watching these videos, chime in the comments. Do you agree with what I say? If I agree with the writers or the votes, these first 3 fights are all the writers picking who wins. The main 5 heavy hitters are where the people voted in and called in and voted, but the 3 are where the writers look. So I'll try and help clarify that too as we talk, like, hey, so these ones that we're looking at today are writers. So they're not fans. We're talking, if you disagree, you're disagreeing with the comic writers, which is okay. We do it all the time. So Captain Marvel, Thor.
Round 1, fight!
3 pages. They meet up. They both are kind of in their like godlike kneel, because it's epic and their epicness just exudes out of them. And they start duking it out. And of course, you aren't going to have Shazam fight anywhere but a carnival. I feel like that's what it is. It's always at a carnival because of Billy Batson, right? And so Shazam, Captain Marvel, Thor, they're duking it out. Captain Marvel drops Thor in the chin, then Thor just takes Mjolnir and whacks him into a Ferris wheel. And then Shazam starts to come back at him. And here's what's really cool. You start to see them, they're kind of fighting around the carousel. Carousel's about to fall, or the Ferris wheel. The Ferris wheel is about to fall on Captain Marvel because he's stuck underneath the rubble here. And so he says, Shazam, he shrinks into a boy, body shrinks. And Thor's like, oh, you use lightning to change. Cool. Captain Marvel tries to go Shazam again. Thor controls the lightning, bops him, knocks out Billy Batson. Thor wins the first fight.
I win.
Thor versus Captain Marvel. Do you agree that Thor wins? And I do, because you got Thor, who can control lightning, and if that's where the power comes through when he says Shazam, I think that's a really cool idea how they did that. I agree with this first one. Thor beats Captain Marvel. Now, with that being said, Shazam beats Thor's movies, except for the first two at least. Shazam beats the first two combined easily. Then Ragnarok. That's a tight fight, but I think Ragnarok wins that. So yeah, there you go. You got a little movie action too. So and then what's really cool as you get into this panel, you see Wonder Woman picks up Mjolnir. Like, that's awesome. That's sweet. Then we get to our next fight. Boom, boom. Fight 2. Ready. We got the Flash. We've got Quicksilver.
Round 1. Fight!
This is one of those kind of quicker fights. 3 pages, Flash and Quicksilver. They're kind of racing, fighting. Semi-truck comes involved. Semi-truck starts to explode. Flash runs and saves the children. And Quicksilver kind of has this like inner monologue, like, oh, what a joy this will be to take down someone who just saved someone else's life, which is weird to me, but whatever. I don't read a lot of Quicksilver, so maybe that's normal to Quicksilver's behavior. But then he kind of goes, he talks about how it would have been weird if he doesn't beat him because Flash is faster than him. And then he kind of pauses for a second, and then Flash just hops up and, like I said, speed punches him and goes, ha, he who hesitates loses. So, round 2, we have DC beating Marvel. We got Flash beating Quicksilver.
I win.
Do you agree? Because I do as well. I think Flash here wins against Quicksilver. And I will be honest and complete with this. I am voting from this because I don't know much about Quicksilver. I just think Flash is a better character because I'm more familiar. I'm agreeing because this is pure bias. I don't know enough about Quicksilver. So that is why I'm saying Flash. So if you guys are Quicksilver or Flash fans in the comments, because I'm not a huge fan of either, let me know, what do you think? Do you agree with the writers here that the Flash would win or not? If you are a Quicksilver fan, what are some series to get into to expose someone to Quicksilver? And our last fight, round 3, we've got Aquaman versus the Submariner.
Round 1. Fight!
You know they're going to put these two against him, right? Kings of Atlantis versus each other, right? Atlanteans versus one another. This was one of those like lackluster fights a little bit, I think, because again, they have to go. So this is a 2-page fight. They're kind of jawing around a little bit. Aquaman lassos Submariner, and they're kind of jarring. And he's like, Submariner's like, you're an idiot. You think this is going to hold me? Like, and then all of a sudden you just see a wave come up and a killer whale just falls on Submariner. So this is where we kind of get into the writers are a little bit like, really? That's how you're going to have Aquaman beat the Submariner? They're just jarring, talking about stuff, and then Aquaman just drops a wave and a killer whale's on it and knocks out the Submariner?
I win.
Whatever. I don't know how I would have done it differently. How would you have that fight written differently if you are? But gang, after 3 fights, DC wins another one. So it is now 2-1 DC over Marvel. Do you agree that Aquaman would beat the Submariner? Because I do as well. I think this is a really cool fight. Again, this kind of falls into the other category. I read a lot of Aquaman. I don't read a lot of Submariner. So it's a personal preference. And I think that's where you get with a lot of these votes is there's probably some people that know a lot about every single character. I don't. And so it's going to lean a lot more towards what I prefer and whatnot. After that fight, we get to basically 2 last pages. The last page is really cool. You have Darkseid kind of facing off with Thanos here. You have Wonder Woman holding up Mjolnir. And then you have the brothers kind of right there on this last page. Really cool. Way to end it. They are setting it up for the third issue, and that's what we're going to talk about next video. We're going to look at issue 3. It's going to be jam-packed with battles, and that's going to lead us into after episode 3. So after this next episode, we're going to dig in all the battles, and we're going to look and prep to get ready for jumping into the Amalgam comic series, which I know that's what we all are here for. Again, hopefully you guys are enjoying this. This is just something fun. If not, cool. Let me know in the comments, the 3 fights, who wins? Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? What are some Submariner? What are some Quicksilver comics to read if I haven't read very much? And with that being said, hopefully you can find some time to curl up, grab a book, and nerd out. Peace.